Hi, Ann. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm warm, which is nice, and I'm good. I'm good. Everything is great. So I'm excited that we're going to dive right in and do another installment here of Ask Eddie and Ann.
Okay, so do you want to hear the latest crazy thing that happened in my neighborhood?
Of course.
Okay, so people don't know I live in the Tenderloin in San Francisco. You can look it up. You'll see lots of news articles. Right now, there's like three tents in
Yeah,
front of
none of them are particularly good, I mind you. Yeah.
yeah, like right now, there's actually three tents pitched in front of my building.
Oh,
So there's
Jesus.
that. But that's not what I was going to tell you about. So I go up to Trader Joe's, get my groceries, come back down the hill, and like I'm going like into my building, and like right in front of the gate, like midway in the sidewalk, there's this like super homeless person, which is someone who's like been homeless a really long time, is probably mentally ill. Like he looked really not with it. And he was burning charcoal on the ground and trying to smoke drugs with it. Like he had his pipe and stuff.
Oh,
So
my
like
God.
I walked in my little entryway
Oh,
where like the gate is and stuff. And I called the, 911. He heard me. He said, well, tell the cops that I walked off. But the coal is still, or the charcoal is still burning. So, I'm talking to the guy and I said, yeah. He goes, well, is it still burning? I said, yeah. I mean, I don't have a fire extinguisher, but it'll go out on its own. He goes, no, I'm calling the fire department. So like I'm waiting because I know it's going to go out by the time the fire department gets there. So it did, and the fire department was there, and I was like, yeah, I explained what happened. But it was just like, and what was really weird was it was like at this point, like I'm so resigned that I wasn't even really like that. Like by Monday, I'd kind of forgotten about it until I was talking to my mom, and I said, "Oh yeah, I should tell you what happened on Saturday."
oh my goodness. That's just weird. But it's also so weird. Like, number one, it seems odd to me that like it's burning coals, right? And
Yeah,
the fire
sure.
department actually responded to that,
Yeah,
which is kind of strange to me, because I can tell you this: when the fire department no longer responds to my cat is trapped up a tree, they say, so what?
yeah,
Like that's a fantasy world that where the fire department used to come out and rescue animals and things,
yeah,
because they just do not do it anymore because the liability, they explained to me, the liability is too extreme.
yeah,
So we don't do it, and the SPCA doesn't do it either. they
yeah.
they won't like take a cat off a roof or out of a tree or anything like that. So let me give you a tip. If anybody is listening and they ever are in a situation where there's a cat trapped on a roof and the fire department won't help and animal control won't help and the SPCA won't help, you know who you call? You call a chimney sweep. That's
Wow.
what you do. You call a chimney sweep, and the chimney sweep can get up on a roof and get that cat down in a matter of seconds. They are so adept. Of course, they will hammer. On this roof was a steep pitch,
Yeah,
and they hammer the steps in as they go, and they climb up. There's a whole thing that they do to get
yeah,
to the chimney. And the cat had been up there for days, and it was so happy to see this guy. He just jumped right on his shoulder, and the guy just came down with him. Of course, the woman. This was behind the house where I lived, and the woman just wouldn't do anything about it. She was terrified. So I
yeah.
distracted her while the chimney sweep went up, and I don't know how in the hell we got on that, but I want to provide some useful information to get us started here. So I thought if the thing about the chimney sweep would be good. They wouldn't come out for coals on the sidewalk or anything like that, but I think to rescue
Yeah.
a cat, they might
That
they might do it.
that's the fire department's job.
Yeah. Gave him some loot for his trouble. So anyway, that's that.
Uh,
I'm sorry that your neighborhood is that's how it goes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, the world in which we now live. Oh well.
Uh, Tell you what.
Okay, so
Okay,
should we get into film noir, which is so much happier place, such a happier place than the real world.
it really is. Sure. Why don't you do one?
You want me to start off? Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Fatal Attraction has the second. as the second most commercially successful film noir ever made. Hmm. I don't know anything about this. Only Basic Instinct did greater box office. Of course, there will be people listening who will argue that are those are those film noir movies, and is it really the box office? I sincerely doubt that Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct. Sorry, this is Alan from San Anselmo. I'm sorry that I'm going to immediately sidetrack your question by saying that this is counting box office dollars.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that neither Fatal Attraction nor Basic Instinct sold as many tickets as The Postman Always Rings Twice.
Yeah.
The original 1940, not the original, the 1946 Postman Always Rings Twice. But that they were paying like 50 cents to see that, whereas they were paying, I can't remember what the ticket price was. It was maybe $6, $7 when those movies came out. So that's a big difference. Nonetheless, Fatal Attraction took severe critical flack for its ending. Did you guys see the original ending? Preview audiences. So, no, I did not see it because I would, as Alan points out, preview audiences so hated the ending that a new one was substituted, and the more traditional ending helped make it a box office smash. The character of Alex, Glenn Close, in frustration and despair, kills herself. Okay. I really botched that all up, man, because now I can't make heads or tails out of what Alan's question is. Okay.
So basically about the ending. Yeah.
The ending of Fatal Attraction, which I saw it when it came out.
Yeah.
And honestly, other than the rabbit, I cannot remember much about it.
Basically, his wife shoots her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And in the original ending, because I had heard about it, not only does she like kill herself, but he gets like blamed for her death.
Okay, that's good.
Which I thought would have been a better ending.
Well, that's yeah, that's borrowing from Leave Her to Heaven.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see where the difference would make it a more popular word of mouth movie. Just as a rule of thumb, unromanticized suicides are not popular endings for movies.
Yeah.
And I guess I should stop talking because I could mention a few in movie history, but maybe people haven't seen the movies and don't know that the characters are going to kill themselves. So, and I've spoken many a time about how it was a violation of the production code back then to commit suicide as a way of escaping justice. Anyway, did you like Fatal Attraction?
No, I mean, he cheated on his wife, and then it like blows up in his face, and then it's like I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't particularly. Also, I mean, I don't know. It's also one of those things where we need to do better when we portray people with mental health issues than we are. And kind of the reality.
That's not going to be in a film noir. That can pretty much guarantee
or anything
that,
though, because there's a very low correlation between mental health and issues and violence. That's just not. In fact, it tends to be the other way around. But no, mainly I just thought the character was a sleazeball, and when I'm supposed to feel sorry for him. I mean, that's what really bothered me about the film was he was a complete sleazeball, and like
I remember about him. Right. I remember the film being kind of polarizing. Not a good date movie, I think Basic Instinct was probably the better date movie. But it's funny, these are two Michael Douglas movies. So and he's a very unappealing character in both of them.
Yeah.
Fatal Attraction is more of a film noir to me than Basic Instinct, which is like a I don't know. It has noirish elements, but it's kind of a cop movie underneath it all. And they're both just really sensational, where they kind of start to, I don't know. Anyway, Alan then finishes up his question by asking, he says, I know Eddie has visited San Anselmo, but have you? And
I
are
have
you?
not.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Eddie has more than visited San Anselmo. My folks used to have a place in Woodacre. This is probably why Alan knows this, but Woodacre is just beyond San Anselmo. It was a little summer getaway place that I remember, but I was really, really young when they had that place. They ended up moving to Sonoma, another little, just a little summer cottagey thing. But anyway, yeah, I remember San Anselmo quite well. Okay, so that's number one.
Okay. And this is Ken from Oklahoma. Do you believe that a film noir must have a realistic setting, or can it be sci-fi or fantasy? While Night of the Hunter is a fairy tale, it is set in the realities of the Depression. Is there a film noir that has a fantasy, science fiction, or otherwise non-reality based settings from the classic era?
No, I don't believe so, um, because then it's science fiction and it's not really film noir, you know, because Ken's question is about the setting, not about the rudiments of the genre or anything. So where you would, some people think that like Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a science fiction noir. I mean, the setting is here. I mean, we get it. So I don't think so. There, and of course he qualifies this by saying from the classic era because speculative science fiction is a different thing because it's still like Blade Runner. There's still just it's a speculative vision of Los Angeles in the future. It's still Los Angeles. It's still somewhat reality based. So um, I'm this is a tricky question because I don't think so. Do you anything come to mind for you? I mean, even the horror films are all the settings are very realistic. That's what makes a
Yeah,
horror film work, and
yeah,
and science fiction. I'm thinking something. One it's not from the classic era, but Dark City, Alex Proyas's movie Dark City, was a science fiction noir,
yeah, absolutely.
right? That is not based in any reality that we know. So I mean, I might that one is the one that comes to mind, but again, not from the classic era. If
Nothing.
anybody can think of something, and it can't just be a fantasy story set in a realistic setting, right? You want to know if the setting is fantastic. So
Yeah, because the only thing that I could ever think of that was sort of like that, but it's more like Night of the Hunter. Is that? Oh my God! It's the what's it called? Tales of Fantasy. Oh my God, we ran it at North City, where it's the three different stories,
oh, it's flesh and fantasy.
Flesh and Fantasy, and then the one that was not included in the original one,
Yes, Destiny.
Destiny,
Destiny.
which to me has that same kind of flavor that Night
It's
of the
fan.
Hunter has.
It's absolutely, and it is what I call fantastical. If you just say fantastic, people think you mean it's fantastic, like it's great. But you have to say fantastical to indicate that it's a fantasy. And the whole, I kind of love that movie.
It's great.
I don't like the first 25 or 30 minutes of it, but boy, once you get to the Julien Duvivier directed parts of it, it is so unusual. It's one of the weirder films of the 40s, I think. And I'm not giving up on the hope of someday putting that whole thing back together. I mean, I mentioned this before, but I've had discussions with people at Universal about the possibility of rejoining Destiny with Flesh and Fantasy so that it could be the film that Duvivier always envisioned. But as of right now, that's all a wait and see
Yeah.
proposition. Anyway, those are really interesting films that are hard to find. Okay, this one I noticed Anne doesn't have a name attached to it.
Oh, that's because it's in the top. It's the first sentence.
Oh, Jan in Stockholm. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a follow up on the question about escape. Um, so Jan wants to know if when I interviewed Peggy Cummins about Gun Crazy, did I ask about other noirs or noirish films like Moss Rose and Escape, or for that matter, some of her other films of interest like Street Corner and Night of the Demon? Um, yes, of course I did. They didn't really pertain to the Gun Crazy story that I was telling, so I didn't really say much about them. And of course, in addition to Street Corner's a pretty good film. It's British noir. I'd love to show it sometime. And Curse of the Demon or Night of the Demon, we have shown with Peggy in attendance. And we also showed Hell Drivers. I think those are the three. I mean, Night of the Demon, everybody loves it. So, I mean, I included that in a Noir City Festival, even though it really isn't a film noir by any stretch of the imagination. It could, you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Curse of the Demon. Yeah. Do you think that it would be considered a noir if they didn't show the demon?
Yeah.
Right? Because right. then it's all kind of, are people imagining all this, or is this really a horror film where the demon is for real? And I always felt that if they just didn't show the demon, and Jacques Tourneur never wanted to show it,
yeah,
that it would be considered more of a noir film. And Peggy certainly had lots to say about that, making that movie, and how much she liked Dana Andrews, but how he was really drinking at that point.
Yeah.
And it was not an easy film to make because of that. Now, he asked one more thing about Mankiewicz and Harrison. The Honey Pot in 1967 is a crime movie, but you don't consider that one a neo-noir, do you? I don't know. I haven't seen I may have seen it a long time ago, but I certainly haven't seen it recently enough to make a statement on whether it feels like a neo-noir or not. And he's wondering if it's deliberate or a coincidence that the unsympathetic character that Rex Harrison played in the film is called Mr. Fox. I think it's a bit of a stretch to insinuate that Mankiewicz called him Mr. Fox as a slap at 20th Century Fox, because he's suggesting maybe he had had enough of a certain film company after Cleopatra. Well, that film company gave him a hell of a lot of money to make Cleopatra, so I don't know if slapping them for the trouble that ensued.
Plus, The Honey Pot was an adaptation of a French play, and I believe the name of the play was Fox in French, if I'm remembering correctly. I may be completely off, but
I'm going to be of no help to you, Anne, because I just cannot remember this movie. Who else was in the film? Do you have any idea? In The Honey Pot, along with Rex Harrison?
Rex Harrison. Yeah. What's the French word for fox?
I have no idea. Okay. I can't.
Okay. Because I want to say like vulpine, something like that. It was like
that sounds more like for vulture, but is it isn't it come on, it's the lycos or something like from lycanthropy, and
that's a wolf.
Oh, that's right, that's a wolf. I'm sorry. Okay, very good. I get my wolves and foxes confused. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yes, let's move on.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do this one.
Okay.
This is Ron from the Detroit metro area, who's a Motor City Noir fan. I enjoyed attending the last two installments of North City, Detroit, which I felt were a great success. I couldn't help but notice that two films had road rage car scenes from In a Lonely Place and Moonrise. Maybe not intended, but made me think of great car scenes in the film noir movies. What films do you think have the greatest car noir appearance? The getaway scene in Gun Crazy immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Um, well, are you like shot in cars or great cars?
I was going
Um,
to say Night Editor.
yeah, well, Night Editor, the car's not really moving, but it is pretty great. Yeah. Uh, that's a good one. I think all the driving scenes in They Live by Night are really terrific.
Yeah.
Where Nick Ray is putting the camera in the car. You know, the chase scene at the end of Side Street is pretty good with Farley Granger in the back of the taxi cab with James Craig. Um, that pops to mind. Um, I of course love just the passing Packard in Whiplash that pancakes Zachary Scott as he rolls down the ramp in his wheelchair. That's pretty great. I'm thinking, um, yeah, mostly I guess they're driving things, but it's funny that there are a lot fewer of those scenes. That's why the gun crazy scene is so memorable because you didn't see that very often. A scene like that in a movie made in the 40s or 50s. Cars became, when cameras got smaller, then you could stash them in cars, and then you get great car chase scenes and whole scenes that play out in cars. I guess like Dark Passage is an interesting one because the whole beginning takes place in Bacall's car where she's picked up Humphrey Bogart and is driving across the Golden Gate Bridge.
Double Indemnity.
That's a pretty, yeah. And the car scene in Double Indemnity, yeah.
Postman Always Rings Twice.
Postman Always Rings Twice has a good car scene, as does Conflict with Humphrey Bogart, where the car is a big part of the plot. When I guess what we can throw in Angel Face. Gene Simmons has a pretty cool car that doesn't make it through the movie. Yeah, I'd say those are pretty good. Generally, they crash.
Oh, and the whole the other one with Robert Mitchum, and he gets hit in the head at the beginning.
Oh, Where Danger Lives.
Where Danger Lived. I mean, there's that whole sequence.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good car stuff. And then what was the other one that just popped into my mind was oh gosh, I'm forgetting it now. After you mentioned the two obvious ones, Double Indemnity and Postman, there was another really good one that came to mind, but I kind of can't remember at the moment. That's funny. The road rage connection between In a Lonely Place and Moonrise. Hadn't thought about that. That's such a great scene in Moonrise. Holy cow. Anyway, me now? Yes, me now. And this is Kelly from Atlanta. Kelly would love to know the status of the 1990s Showtime noir TV series Fallen Angels, and why hasn't that series made its way to any DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming service? He's lucky because he has VHS tapes. They're so old I can't even say it anymore. And a CD soundtrack that were released at the time. But it would be very nice to get an upgrade on the film elements and maybe get some commentaries and extras about the series. Well, I hate to tell you this, Kelly, but that is probably not going to happen. If you give me 1 second, I am going to, this may not be as easy as I wanted to think it was going to be. Jesus, because I have to sign in and do a password and everything. Because I know I was thinking about this question recently because our friend Danilo Castro, who is one of the editors now of the Noir City magazine, he did an article in our publication several years ago. It was the first thing he actually wrote for the magazine. It was about Fallen Angels. And he interviewed the producer of the show, William Horberg. And I could quote Horberg because it was in the article, but he is very unhappy because that's not going to happen. There's just all kinds of rights issues knotting the whole thing up. The company that produced the series went bankrupt, and as always happens, there were all kinds of twists and turns in the ownership of the material. And I just recall sadly him saying everybody's lost track of where the original elements are. So this is this is the tragedy of how this stuff can happen. And people, I mean, that was a major show for Showtime. And did you ever see any of that stuff, Ann? The Fallen Angels
I don't
series?
think so. No.
It if anything, neo-noir would be ripe for recovery, it is that show, because not only of the talent, well, all because of the talent involved. Number one, they were adapting short stories by really great writers. There was a Chandler story adapted. There was a David Goodis story adapted. There was a Cornell Woolrich story adapted. It featured some of the best actors imaginable when they were much younger, and it had some of the actors directed the episodes themselves. Like Tom Cruise directed an episode, Tom Hanks directed an episode, Steven Soderbergh directed an episode. It was an amazing confluence of talent involved in putting that show together, far ahead of the more recent revival of film noir. So, if that show was made today, I think it would be considerably more popular and protected than it was back in the early 90s. So good on you, Kelly, that you even have a VHS tape of the show, because that may be all that's going to exist when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and the reality too is a lot of shows, though, streaming companies, they're producing new stuff, and including like HBO, Showtime, and stuff, aren't putting out physical media copies of stuff.
Yeah.
So, there's that.
Yes, and it's just kind of interesting if you know I'm sure there are companies who would do that, whereas the networks are not interested. They are certainly interested once it runs its expected life, once it has its expected life. They would happily sell the rights to the thing to somebody who wants to put it on physical media. That I'm positive of that. But there is a danger that stuff will just slip right through the cracks. And thank you for the question, Kelly, because it points up why the Film Noir Foundation exists. I mean, we still have things from the classic era we want to save. So 1990, you would like to think that people were taking care of this stuff, but it doesn't happen all the time. Okay. Is it you?
This is from Rommel in Maryland. I love Noir films. Can you give a rundown on which Noir films are available on Amazon or CCM, which replaced TCM Movie Shop on their website? I'm getting your book Noir Bar from Amazon in October. I am looking
I'm
forward
going to assume that was an old question.
This is an old question.
Otherwise, I'd say, why are you waiting?
We are currently, so people know, we had a few leftovers from September, but we're doing October questions now.
We're only 6 months behind. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm looking forward to pursuing the recipes in your book because I like mixed drinks and I always wanted to be a bartender, but nowadays the job is only open to dames, broads, and malls.
Not true, Rommel. I understand you're going for a joke line there, but certainly bartending is not only open to dames, broads, and malls. That is not true. Plus, this is weird. I mean, Anne, you should be answering this because I don't know. He's saying what noir films are available on Amazon or CCM. I mean, he's asking about purchasable physical media, it seems.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I have no idea. I
Yeah.
mean, and all you really need to do is just Google, a film title or just film noir under shopping on
Yeah. I mean, like
Google,
you can
and
go.
and what's available will come up. And also, if you
Yeah.
go to IMDb, you type in anything, and it tells you whether there is physical media that exists for that movie.
Yeah. I mean, I would
Uh,
definitely say you can go to like a site like Deep Discount's a really good site, and you can just search and filter by genre. You can filter down to film noir.
yeah.
So I
Um,
mean, I don't know if you can do that on Amazon. I don't think you can filter by genre by them, but I know like on other sites you can. So I would definitely try Deep Discount because they also have really good prices.
cool. That's it. Useful info. That's what we like. That's what. Okay. Now, Danielle Johnson from Scottsville, Michigan. And I see what you did here, Anne, grouping the questions. Very good. She is wondering if I am planning on a second round of Noir Bar, the cocktail book, because she would love to see a vermouth cassis recipe from you in print. I love that. Not just a vermouth cassis recipe, but from you in print. The cocktail is ordered in two of Danielle's favorite movies, The Damned Don't Cry. I love that movie. And The Unsuspected, which I don't love as much, but I also enjoy very much. Um, yeah, I don't know. At this point, it remains to be seen whether there will be another volume of Noir Bar. If there is, it won't be coming for a couple of years yet. This book still has some life in it, so I'm not sure. But I'll tell you this, Danielle, if there is one, I will remember to include a vermouth cassis cocktail, which my understanding of that is just vermouth, Italian sweet vermouth, and creme de cassis, which
Yeah.
is kind of blackberry liqueur, is basically what it is, and soda water. That's what it is. So it's more a liqueur and a fortified wine with soda put in there. Kind of a spritz more
Yeah.
than a drink, because of the fizzy water. Okay, um, me again? No, you now.
No, me. This is from our friend Michael in Post Falls, Idaho. Over the years, I've always heard Michael Curtiz's last name pronounced Curtiz, as Eddie and the people at CCM say it. However, recently younger film enthusiasts such as Imogen Sarah Smith pronounce it Curtis, which is correct.
um, we're all wrong because being a Hungarian, I believe the correct pronunciation of his name is Kurtej.
Kurtej.
Michael Kurtej, and
That's pretty.
but nobody says that because it's just Americanized, and because it's just a Z on the end. Everybody assumes it's like instead of Curtis, they say Curtiz. That's makes it sound exotic or something, but Kurtej is really his name. Um, so you know, but that's a tricky one because when it sometimes feels very pretentious when you try to say it the correct way.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the only name like that where I'm a huge stickler, where I won't go with the popular pronunciation, is Dashiell Hammett,
Yeah.
because it's when his daughter tells you, it's pronounced Dashiell, it's not Dashiell. I feel somewhat of an obligation to stick with that. So what I generally do when, because it comes up all the time, is I just kind of play it kind of loose. I go, so this is a story by Dashiell Hammett,
Yeah.
which is like kind of a combination of both. Dashiell Hammett, but Dashiell with that hard emphasis on the dash is really not working. It's Dashiell, which is French, and that's just that. But
Okay, can I ask
Cortege
you,
is Cortege. Yeah.
because this is what okay, so the director Melville, like
Yes.
I always pronounce it Melville because he named himself after the author Melville,
Right.
the American author Melville, but I've heard people pronounce it the French
Melville.
Mavi, and I just think no, it's Melville because he named himself
Oh,
after
it absolutely.
Melville. I'm
It's not.
sorry.
Oh no, you are absolutely right. It's like people who call who say Jules Dassin, Jules Dassin instead of Jules Dassin.
Yeah.
He is not French. He is an American. He's a New Yorker. His name's Julie Dassin, and trying to put the French spin on it for him is as goofy as trying to put a French spin on Melville when he specifically chose it because of Herman Melville, and he wanted to have an American code name during when he fought for the resistance in World War II. So to put a French spin on it is kind of goofy, and that I'm trying to think if there are other ones like that, but coming from a guy who has spent his entire lifetime having his last name mispronounced because but then again, I don't know, this may be groundbreaking news for our viewers tonight, but I kind of have the same thing as, when it's an adopted name, does it really matter if people mispronounce it? So everybody still spells it Mueller and says Mr. Mueller. I mean, even after watching Noir Alley for, 5 years, where every episode I say, "Hi, this is Eddie Muller. I'm, blah blah blah." People still obsessively pronounce it Mueller, and I get fan mail where it's misspelled, and it's like, Jesus, every book has it spelled right. Every episode on TCM is prefaced by my name on the screen, spelled Muller. It's like, how can you get that wrong? But that's not really my name. I mean, it is my name, but my father's name was Vojkovic. So Vojkovich, and son of the wolf. And that was just the name he was born with. It's the name on the birth certificate for my two older brothers, but not for my sister and me, because Muller became my father's legal name after he had written professionally under that name for 7 years. It became legally his name. So my sister and I were born after that. So we are legally Mullers, even though if you ask that, what is my ethnicity or whatever, I would quickly own up to half Irish, and then my grandfather was actually from Dalmatia, which existed, as part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and is Yugoslavian, exactly. So, and German Jewish.
Yeah.
My grandfather on my mother's side, German Jewish. So anyway, that's all that. So there you go. Just throwing out some useless information to see what it gets me. Okay. Okay, now, is it me now?
It's you now.
Okay, Sam from Iowa. This one is totally for you, Anne. This is your question. One of the great things about the golden age of film noir is all the radio theater adaptations which were produced alongside the movies, often with the original actors involved. There are some great radio theater productions of DOA, The Web, and A Dark Corner, or The Dark Corner, I would assume. There's such a great way to experience these stories and soak up the language and atmosphere even when you're multitasking. Do you have any favorite film noir radio theater adaptations, and how common were they? Do you think there are any more waiting to be unearthed and or published online? Well, this is your bailiwick, and I only know of a few because I don't really listen to them that often. But you are the expert in this area.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite one was I think it was Academy Award Theater, and they did a 25-minute version of the Maltese Falcon. I love it mainly because it's a 25-minute version of the Maltese Falcon, which is one of the most impressive pieces of radio play screenwriting ever. I mean, lots
That's
of
pretty good.
yeah, it was, and it is, and I think there was also they kind of expected that people had seen the movie or read the book, by that point in the world. So there's that. And then there was like, oh gosh, there was a radio adaptation of Shadow of a Doubt with Cary Grant playing Uncle Charlie, which was weird. Um, so those were kind of two that were really popped to mind. So Lux Radio Theater is always a good place to look for movie adaptations,
Yeah.
even though I'm not a huge fan of the Lux Radio Theater, to tell you the truth. I don't know if part of it is just that, I mean, it's just such an ego stroke. It kind of puts me off the series a little
How
bit.
how how so? Because Lux was the preeminent one, right? I mean that
Yeah,
they did
yeah, it
more than
was. That
anybody
was
else.
the one, and those were done very close. Yeah, it was a big deal. Like you wanted to be on Lux Radio Theater. It's just, I just found Cecil B. DeMille just very like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
there's just
yeah.
something about the way they make such a big deal about him and stuff, and and so it was like so it was sort of grating, and also it's just not particularly like I also think that so yeah, so there was a lot of them. I mean, obviously, I know I've talked about this before, but like Jack Benny did some hilarious film noir adaptations where they do
Hmm.
a sketch and the second half would be a movie. Like the lunch counter murders, which was really funny because Dan Duryea was actually on that episode, and it was very much obviously it was which was a fun one. It was sort of a send up the killers, but Duryea was in it, and then Dennis Day was like his sidekick and kept imitating Duryea. It's actually really funny. It's also on the TV show. Um, and then they're like their adaptation of Dark Passage. Like sometimes I'm actually watching Dark Passage, like it'll just come into my
Oh.
mind, especially the stuff
Yeah.
with the plastic surgeon. It's just really hilarious what they do in that. So, but I think honestly, I mean, if you really want to watch or listen to noir stuff, I mean, I think suspense is really the best. And they didn't exactly adapt the movies, but they adapted a lot of Cornel Woolrich, a lot of
Hmm.
Woolrich. And I just think if you're really into noir, that's like the best show, even though they weren't necessarily doing like adaptations of
Right.
movies, but just in terms of the best noir content, I think it was
I I
Suspense.
I
And The
I
Whistler, which Jack
yeah.
Benny
Oh yeah.
also does
Oh
a really
yeah.
hilarious
Yeah.
parody of The Whistler called The Fiddler.
The fiddler. Yeah.
So
I
funny.
I always found it interesting to listen to the ones where they cast different actors, not the
Yeah.
original actors that you're familiar with from the movie, but it's a different cast playing the parts.
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um,
And that is kind of one of the fun things. Yeah, because I know I've heard Key Largo, which I think maybe that was Lux Radio Theater that did Key Largo.
I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah.
But like I said, I think honestly, if you want to explore old time radio though, and you're into Norse stories, just like listen to Suspense. It was so great. I mean, just skip anything that's based on a John Dixon Carr story. Those all really just like suck. But other, I'm sorry. They are not
Is there
tales
any?
that will keep you in suspense. They are
Do
like
you have a particular reason for like what's the flaw in those?
they're just not suspenseful. Like one of the episodes is literally someone's jewelry gets stolen at a party. So like they're gathering around the table and like one of the guys says, okay, I'm gonna count a certain number, it needs to be returned. And he's literally just there counting. Like there's like this gap of the radio show where it's just someone counting. And also, who cares about like, who cares? I don't care about a
Yeah.
bracelet some rich person stole, you know. Whereas it really starts. So the first season's a little up and down, but then it really starts like second season and forwards. I mean, it's just one of the greatest shows, and the writing was so good on that show. And they based it on, like I said, I mean, there were so many Woolrich adaptations, but different adaptations of people's original stuff. I mean, that's where Sorry Wrong Number comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry Wrong Number was a Louise Fletcher original script, and it was really, really popular.
Lucille.
Yes, Lucille Fletcher. Sorry.
Just had to throw that in because I make that mistake all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And she also, there's another one that she wrote that's really creepy and weird with Ida Lupino and Vincent Price.
That's not the one about the hitchhiker in the road. No.
No, it's about an organ. So this like woman meets this guy and he brings her back, and he is Vincent Price. He romances her. It's like set in the late 19th century, and he brings her back to his house, and in his house it's like this huge pipe organ where all the pipes run through all the walls and stuff.
Oh my God.
And like he's a widower, and his two kids are convinced that their mother's like alive in the walls.
Okay.
Ida Lupino is just like, oh my God, it's so good. It's Ida Lupino and Vincent Price. I mean, what?
How can it not be good? Yeah,
No.
exactly.
No.
Okay, we're gonna then the last one is your question from
9.
Hawaii.
Oh, no, we did that. 10. That's me. Yes. MJ. Aloha.
MJ Duberstein. Nice. Okay. All right.
Aloha. I've been trying to determine for ages your brief North theme used in the intro shots. So
I'm assuming he means if
on
it is a
Nor Alley.
I don't know if it's a he or it's just MJ, so I don't know if this is a man or a woman. On Nor Alley, it's a piece of music written for Noir Alley by a musician named Reed Hall, and it's just called Noir Alley Theme.
Okay.
That's it.
So I think this was after you showed Whiplash. I agree Whiplash was more an early exercise in the theater of the absurd. I kept expecting Nick Danger, Third Eye.
Nick Danger, yeah.
To pop in. And why did the actor who played Eddie resemble Joe Palooka? Does the plot want us to believe that soon after winning the title, Gordon announces he was stepping down immediately, and almost as immediately, concussed, is back in California and painting and is shook when she shows up and buys another masterpiece of Surging Waves, or as in other code breakers of trains entering the tunnels?
Right.
Her husband flattened out on the NYC. You talked about this early. NYC side street outside MSG. He's no fun. He fell right over. Wait, don't say it. I said, was that on the other side of the record? Okay, so if people don't know, he's referring to Firesign Theater. In case you're wondering, because I realize people.
What's the Nick Danger reference? You know,
yeah.
And
yeah. By the way, he's no funny. Wait, didn't I say that on the other side of the record? Is like one of my favorite lines in that. I love that album.
People who are unfamiliar with the Firesign Theater, that's is unfortunate. Is Phil Proctor and Peter Bergman, who I actually have encountered both of these guys in real life. Phil is still around. Peter passed away, I believe. Anyway, great guys. So many people grew up listening to those Firesign Theater albums. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, yeah, Whiplash is theater of the absurd. It's like every single goofy trope is thrown in there. But I find it enjoyable and interesting that he referenced the Zachary Scott death scene, which I'm sure wouldn't work today, right? They'd probably be like a backlash against having the wheelchair-bound guy get run over by a car.
Yeah.
And then the audience cheers when it happens. you've achieved equality when you can have the villain be in a wheelchair, and it's part of why he's so villainous. Anyway, um, I
So
I
I
guess
think
that was the only.
that
I
was
guess
it.
that was the
Yeah.
only question was who wrote where did the theme come from? I'm
And why
glad
did the
that they.
actor resemble Joe Palooka?
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I can't actually remember if I know Freddie Steele is in the movie, and I'm going to do something I never do, and I'm going to quickly look this up and see who played Eddie. And no, Duke. Why did the actor who played Eddie? I don't see any character named Eddie in the credits list here. If you're talking about Duke, the character of Duke, then that was played by Freddie Steele, who was a boxer, which would explain why he might have thought he looked like Joe Palooka or something. But I don't see any Eddies listed in the cast list, so we'll just assume that's what he meant.
So I want everyone who's not familiar with Firesign Theater to look up Firesign Theater on the Internet Archive. I mean, that's a big reason why I kept this like whole question intact, was just because I wanted to talk about
Don't
Firesign
crush that
Theater.
dwarf. Hand me the pliers.
Unfortunately, a dime was in Mr. Rococo's pocket.
Okay. So, believe it or not, Anne, we've gone through all of this week's questions, and we've done it in a half hour less time than we normally take.
Yes.
So, not so many digressions this week, probably because I'm sweltering.
Yeah.
And I'm dying because I haven't eaten today. So, I'm just eager as hell to go and have something to eat.
Well, we were on an hour last week when we finished the questions. We just wound up talking about
We just ended up talking
Sugar
about
Ripley and Patricia Highsmith. By the way, people, I did excerpt that, and that discussion is now a separate video on the short takes playlist on our North City channel on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I put up all of that I put up on Instagram, actually, because you can do up to an hour on Instagram. So I put that up on our Instagram account.
Wow. I never want to feel like we're overstaying our welcome. And since then, I've actually did an interview. I'm trying to remember what magazine. Oh, it was for Men's Health magazine. Interesting.
Did they ask you about your workout?
No, they asked me about sugar because apparently it's going to be up on their website or something. Yeah. But they were wanted to know what it is about the character of the private detective that makes him eternally popular. And of course, because it's Men's Health magazine, they had a particularly male spin on it, as in what makes this a popular fantasy figure for guys, So anyway, I don't know what they're going to do with my answer, which was, rather long and rambling, but interesting. And there's one episode to go this week on sugar, and I don't know if anybody is watching it. You haven't seen any of it, right?
No.
I'm just kind of curious if the people who watch this program have watched Sugar, and not just what their reaction is to the show, but I'm a little it uses a lot of clips from classic noir films, a lot, like more than any show ever. And I'm not sure why. So I'm kind of curious what people think based on the big reveal of the show, that Sugar is not exactly who you may have thought he was when the series began, but why they utilize all these clips. At first, I thought there was some underlying reason for it, but now with only one episode to go, I'm starting to think it was just a gimmick.
Yeah.
It was just something to say, get it? it's this is our take on old stories like this, Murder My Sweet and The Big Sleep and all that stuff. So I don't know. I'd be curious to see if the last episode includes an explanation of why they were using so many of these film clips. Boy, the last one they pulled all kinds of stuff from Kiss Me Deadly. And I honestly cannot tell you why, what the purpose of it is.
Oh, by the way, remember we were talking about Ripley, and you were talking about that they were using green screen in that for some of the shots?
Yes, I contended it was actually AI, not just green screen, but AI.
But you were incorrect. We had someone comment about it. I'm sorry, I don't have. Let me see. And he's writing a article about it because I thought it was just like really high contrast cinematography, and evidently, yeah, he's the next issue of American Cinematographer is
Oh,
going to have this man's article on it.
great.
And I'm really, but I wanted to give him a shout out because I really appreciated him commenting on the in the comments about it. I'm sorry I wasn't expecting to bring this up. I didn't write his name down, but I just wanted to let you know that because I'm really I really want to get that issue of American
Yeah,
Cinematographer because I really
that's
want to
great.
read about the
So there
cinematography.
was he
It was all shot on location.
interviewed the. Well,
Yeah,
I figured it was shot on location. I
yeah,
just felt like they used artificial intelligence to enhance a lot of the cinematography.
yeah.
Or, I'm saying AI because it felt to me like some of the backgrounds were just constructed out of nothing. I'm not saying that it's bad or anything. I'm just saying that it had an unreal, super hyper perfect composition and lighting to the degree that I thought this must be artificial intelligence. If specifically I'm talking about the episode where Ripley has to dispose of the body. I don't know if you watched
Yeah,
the show, but
yeah.
the episode where yes, of course you've seen the show, where Ripley disposes of the
Yeah,
body and they're out by the viaduct and there's
yeah.
a lane with these trees. They're like cypress trees or something. And and the lighting was all so incredibly perfect that I said, this looks better than it could ever have looked if they had actually shot this on location. So that was what made me wonder. Beyond that, I'm just not that expert in contemporary cinematography to tell you this is just what high def looks like now.
Yeah,
Like
and
like all the stuff in the streets and the cobblestones and all that. I mean, I had no doubt that they were shooting this on location because what is the purpose of making a television show and getting all of that money if you're not going to actually go on location to shoot these
right.
million
Yeah.
dollar and something per episode things? You're not going to do them, staying in a hotel room someplace. You're going to actually go and shoot it.
Sorry, I just want to quickly tell people how to get North City Magazine.
You sign up for the mailing list through the Film Noir Foundation. You have to do that first, so we have your email address. And then if you donate to the foundation online, is the fastest way to do that through PayPal. There are links to the contribute page and on the contribute page and all that. $20, a minimum of $20 gets you a subscription to the digital edition of the magazine. There is also a print edition of the magazine that is available through Amazon. And as always, I will stress that we only get a fraction of a dollar on the print edition, whereas the $20 donation, helps underwrite the production of the magazine, but also everything left over goes directly to the Film Noir Foundation.
Okay, and tell them about North City Boston.
I don't know who that was. Noir City Boston is coming up June 14th to the 16th. I will not be there, but our great friend and colleague Foster Hirsch will be presenting the movies at Noir City Boston. I believe the whole thing is up on the website now of the Brattle Theater.
It is.
Excellent. That's where that is. Then in July, I will be um, returning to Portland. There will be a Noir City in Portland, the 19th to the 21st of July, which should be great fun. I haven't been there for 8 or something years more,
Yeah.
and that will be a lot of fun. There's a we just finished setting up the program for that, and there will be some extracurricular events involved in Portland that should be a lot of fun. I'm going to do like a formal Q&A thing. There's also going to be a book signing and a cocktail tasting thing, and there will be like I don't want to call it a master class, but there will be an admission, separate admission thing for a longer, more involved, intensive discussion of film noir and stuff on the final day of the festival. That's all Portland.
Very, very cool.
Yes.
People are very happy that we're back in Portland.
Yeah, absolutely. Ted Hurleman, who is the guy who brought me up there in the first place, he is back at the Hollywood Theater, which is a great venue, and I'm very excited about going back and doing it. I'm thinking about taking the train up to Portland.
You should. I've always wanted to do that. I think it'd be great.
Well, I'm so jealous. My old buddy Dennis was here recently, and he lives in New York, but he stayed with me for a few days. And then when he left, I realized he was taking a cross country train to get back to New York, and I was so envious. Wow.
Say hello.
I thought it was either a cat or a polar bear. I couldn't just see at first which
they look
one
like
it was.
little polar bears, don't they?
They do.
What are you doing? What are you doing? You got caught on there.
Uh-oh.
Claustrumed.
So anyway, that's the plan. Then we'll talk about the other festivals later on. We're lining those up as well.
She's like perfectly in my way.
Good. That's what cats specialize in. That's what they're best at.
Yeah. Well, you're not dumping my water again and breaking another monitor.
Okay. I am going to tell you now that I'm very pleased that Tizzy was going to be very difficult tonight because I'm upstairs, she's downstairs. Kathleen is not home, and she was starting to get a little cranky, and I thought she would just be crying through this whole thing, but she didn't make a peep. So now I'm nervous, and I better go and see.
You probably should. So I'm sorry to say I can't find that comment now, but there will be an article on the cinematography of Ripley in the next issue of an American Cinematheque if people are interested.
No, American Cinematographer. Wasn't American Cinematographer magazine.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry I couldn't find the name of the author for you all, but because I just want to give him a shout out since he actually was.
Well, I'll go back and track it down. But I should have a subscription to American Cinematographer, but I don't. I have a lot of old back issues, but because that magazine is venerable. It has been around a long time. So that's very cool. And I'm glad to know that people are listening. And I'm happy to have anything that I say refuted if I am misspeaking. So I can't wait to read that article.
Yeah. And just let people know, too, if you're on our newsletter email list, when we announce an episode of Ask Eddie, that's where the email for sending in questions are. So if anybody wants to send in, because you were asking about people's opinion on sugar, about why they're using the clips, I do read them when they come in, and if something that's time sensitive comes in, I do actually add those to the to our episodes.
Good. Very good.
Don't worry. Oh yeah, I'm gonna write this in, and like 6 months later, you'll read my
email.
No,
because
if it's specific to something that's going on right now, I do put those in our episodes right away.
Yes, and also it's not just, it wasn't really that I was soliciting a question. I was soliciting a comment, you know,
Yeah.
because I'd just be curious to know if people have opinions about that. And we can then discuss, collate these opinions and
Yeah.
discuss it on the next episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Cool.
I'm going to go have a cocktail and watch a baseball game and eat some dinner.
Okay. That sounds like a plan, Stan.
Okay, Ann. Thanks, everybody. I hope this one was fun, and we'll see you very, very soon, I'm sure.
Okay. We'll see you later. Bye.